So today we're going to be talking about 3 things to do if you do not know how to answer an Lcsw exam question during the test. This is really important information and you're going to want to stick around to find out what those 3 tips are. Hello, welcome back to my channel, Mental Health with Melissa. I'm Melissa. If you're new here, I am a licensed clinical therapist, an Lcsw, a clinical supervisor, and a PhD psychology research student. Please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button for more content like this as I post videos every single Sunday and Wednesday. Subscribing to my channel really helps me get mental health information out there to our communities of color and information in general to those that are interested in the mental health professions, including a lot of Lcsw test prep questions and information in general about Lcsw exam prep and information. So today we are going to be taking a look at what to do if you do not know how to answer an Lcsw exam question during the actual test. So this does come up. It's something that hopefully will not come up several times during your test, but we all have our particular areas of strength in the test and particular areas of weakness. And so by acknowledging those things, we can be better equipped to handle those challenging questions that come our way. So today we're going to be talking about 3 things to do if you do not know how to answer an Lcsw exam question during the test. This is really important information and you're going to want to stick around to find out what those 3 tips are. Okay, so we are going to be taking a look at this R.E.S acronym. R.E.S is the acronym that you're going to want to memorize and that you're going to want to remember for when you come across a test prep or a test question in the actual Lcsw exam that you do not know the answer for. So we're going to go through the steps, and then I'm also going to give you an actual question, a vignette question, so that we can apply that to the test prep question and use it as an example as a challenging question that we may not know the answer to. So R in the acronym R.E.S stands for review. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is review the vignette or review the question. As I've mentioned in my other videos, a lot of the time the answer is going to be found in the vignette or the question itself. So we're going to want to review by breaking down the actual question. That's the first step in the R.E.S model of trying to figure out what to do if you don't know how to answer the question. The next step is E for elimination process. So many of you are probably familiar with the process of elimination. If there's several options or answers that look like they could be the correct answer, we're going to want to really go through each one and start eliminating the ones that may not look like they are the most appropriate answer. And then lastly, we're going to go to S in the R.E.S model, which is skip. So you're going to want to go ahead and save that question and then skip it so that you can focus on other questions that you may know and then come back to the question later at the end of the exam, because you don't want to spend too much time on one question, especially if there's going to be multiple other questions that you already know the answer to. So you're really going to want to leave those ones that leave you scratching your head for the very end. Okay, so let's go ahead and apply the R.E.S model to this question here. So let's go ahead and get started. A clinical social worker meets with a client who is very irritable, agitated, and starts screaming during the session. What is the first thing the social worker should do to respond? Option A, ignore and refuse to discuss the client's inappropriate behavior. B, discuss the importance of respect and managing restraint. C, acknowledging the client's emotions and allow the client to process what is behind the agitation. Or D, de-escalate the screaming by allowing the client to continue to scream for 30 minutes. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to want to do on the R.E.S acronym model that we're going to use if we don't know how to answer a question, or we don't know the question, or we don't know the answer, is the review. So R. So we're going to want to go ahead and review this vignette. So the clinical social worker is meeting with a client who is very irritable and agitated. So let's start reviewing this and breaking this question down. So this person is irritable, agitated, and screaming. Okay, so this tells us that this person is experiencing a lot of strong emotions right now, because this is also during the session. What is the first thing the social worker should do to respond? And notice how I highlight first. So I'm going to link some of my other videos down below about the best first and next questions, because these are really critical thinking questions. The test wants to assess your ability to determine how you should triage, because multiple answers here may be definitely appropriate. However, the test wants to know what is the first thing that you should do in this scenario to respond. So this is going to be a very key element here. So if you are having a hard time kind of deciding what the answer is, again, we're going to narrow it down by looking at what the question is asking us. This is not asking us what the best thing to do is, or how we personally would handle this situation if we were experiencing it in another scenario. The test has clearly laid out what's going on here and what the first thing that the social worker should do. So now that we've gone over the R part, reviewing the vignette in the R.E.S acronym model, let's go ahead and go to the elimination process, which is the second step. So let's go through each of these options, and we'll just go ahead and do it in order. Option A, ignore and refuse to discuss the client's inappropriate behavior. Okay, so right here, ignore and refuse, these are really key triggering terms, because we don't ignore in therapy, and we don't refuse, especially refuse to discuss anything that a client is bringing up to us, even if it may be inappropriate or uncomfortable for either the client or the therapist. We want to make sure that we are able to have open dialogue about whether it be inappropriate behavior, uncomfortable feelings, and making sure that we can bring those things to the surface. So we see right away, ignore and refuse. Again, those are going to be really key terms there. So we don't do that. We don't want to do that. So this is not going to be the answer if we're going through the elimination process. Okay, option B, discuss the importance of respect and managing restraint. Okay, so this is really important, because these are really good boundary setting things to bring up if this is something that comes up a lot with this particular client, right? So we're not ignoring and refusing to discuss inappropriate behavior, but rather we're doing the opposite of that and discussing the importance of respect and managing restraint. So if this is going to continue to happen all the time in the sessions with the client, then it is definitely important to bring up, because we don't want to ignore this type of behavior. But is it the first thing that we're going to want to do if this is, coming up for the first time, for example? So instead of crossing this off, let's review the other questions, and then we'll go back and see what we can do with the elimination process. Option C, acknowledge the client's emotions and allow the client to process what is behind the agitation. Okay, so some key words here. Acknowledging. As therapists and clinical social workers, clients deserve and have the right to acknowledge their emotions, and we should be doing that as well, as we're facilitators in that therapeutic process, and we can do that by modeling. And so when we acknowledge and validate somebody's emotions, then we're really allowing them to see that no matter what type of strong emotion they're feeling, it's okay to feel it, but we can acknowledge it first. Acknowledgement is very important. And then allow the client to process what is behind the agitation. This sounds like a very strong answer to me, because if this is the first time that it's happening, or even if it's happened before and this has been successful in the past, then we're really going to want to start with this, acknowledging where they're at and asking them really what's behind this agitation, because behind every emotion and feeling, there is definitely more to explore. So I'm really interested to know about this, right? So before we actually select it, let's continue on with this elimination process and read option D, because we don't want to leave any option out. We want to read every single option, even if one sounds very strong to us. Option D, de-escalate the screaming by allowing the client to continue to scream for 30 minutes. So this may be not the most helpful thing to do, because it doesn't really seem like you would be de-escalating the screaming if you're still allowing the client to continue to scream for 30 minutes. So, I'm sure that we've all kind of come across this type of client that will maybe talk like the entire session without really being okay with the therapist or the social worker not getting a word in. And while it's important to hear out the client and really develop that rapport, this doesn't really seem like it would be a helpful option, because you're just allowing them to go on for 30 minutes without addressing what the root cause may be, or without acknowledging, like this option says. So this is not going to be an appropriate answer for what to do first. Now, if we're going back up to B, discuss the importance of respect in managing restraint. This is something that may happen, but it's not the first thing, as this one looks like it's going to be the most appropriate first thing to do. So it's going to be C, acknowledge the client's emotion and allow the client to process what is behind the agitation. Now, if we weren't able to come up with one answer in the elimination process, which is step 2 of REM, then we would want to go ahead and skip to it's the R.E.S model. So we would want to skip to S, which is skip the question and leave it for the very end. Okay, so again, the R.E.S model is what you're going to want to use if you don't know the answer to a question. It's going to be review, elimination process, and skip. I hope that this video was helpful. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section below. Until next time, managing mental health matters.